Hello, and a very good morning from the lovely city of Graz, up here in the Austrian state of Styria. Today, I'll be taking a train I've wanted to do for quite some time, travelling aboard the EuroCity Transalpin service that runs daily between here and Zurich. I'll be taking it as far as its penultimate stop in the Swiss border town of Buchs today. For reasons that will soon become apparent, it's not just the stunning alpine scenery that I'm looking forward to today. Anyway, before all that, let's get inside the station here, Graz Hauptbahnhof, and see what it has to offer. Well, I must say I'm loving the artwork here that has been used to spruce up an otherwise very brutalist structure. The current incarnation of Graz Hauptbahnhof was completed in 1956, being built to replace the original station building, which was sadly destroyed during the Second World War. For a fairly modestly sized station, there are a great deal of shops and restaurants on offer within, with everything from a large spa convenience store to the customary McDonald's being offered. Now, for today's trip, I'll be travelling in first class, so I'm able to make use of the ÖBB lounge, which is located towards the southern end of the station. The lounge, while small, is actually great, with a really good selection of drinks and snacks being offered. The interior design also looks superb, being very modern and nicely incorporating the colours of the Austrian national operator. Well, the time soon comes to make the short walk to Platform 1 to head and board our train. The Transalpin departs Graz for Zurich at 9:45 AM daily, operating as EuroCity 164, with the train scheduled to take 9 hours and 35 minutes to travel the full length of the route. Now, the train mainly features coaches from the Swiss national operator SBB, although there are a couple of ÖBB coaches towards the front, including the dining car. However, and here's what I've been really looking forward to, I'll be spending today's journey sampling the views from this lovely Panorama coach. I think that this is such a great facility to have on what is supposed to be such a scenic train. At the very front of the train there's also a regular first class coach, which is also where you'll find a massive dedicated bicycle space. Bicycle spaces do cost extra and do need to be reserved in advance, although this can be done easily through the ÖBB website or on the app. By the way, I should probably also mention that while you are going to need a first class ticket to travel in the Panorama coach, it isn't going to cost you extra compared to if we travelled in the regular first class coach. In fact, while it is strongly recommended, it isn't even mandatory to reserve a seat in either coach, so you could, in theory, just decide on the day which one you want to sit in, although you do run the risk of there being no seats available if you do that. Anyway, I think it's time we got on board. And wow, this coach looks absolutely amazing. Lots of natural light and massive windows. This should be a fantastic journey. Being a first class coach, the seats are, of course, laid out in a 2+1 configuration, with all of the seats being part of a bay of 2 or 4. And of course, being specifically designed for sightseeing, I was pleased to find that all of the seats have perfect window alignment. The legroom is pretty good, and I'd imagine this would even be the case if you had someone sitting opposite you. Each seat has access to a litter bin and a little table. You'll find the dining car menu under the table, which I'll be sure to link in the description below, and under the bin you'll find a couple of plug sockets. The seats themselves are rather comfortable too, offering both a good amount of padding and a decent degree of recline. And lastly, you'll also find one of those sun visor style blinds, should everything become a bit too bright for you. Overall, a great place to spend the long journey to Switzerland. Anyway, before we set off, let's just see where this journey through the Alps will take us. Our trip today will see us heading west, passing to the south of Salzburg, before heading via Innsbruck. Towards the end of the journey, we'll briefly pass through the microstate of Liechtenstein, before finally arriving into Buchs, almost immediately after crossing into Switzerland. The trip to Buchs is scheduled to take 8 hours and 14 minutes. Well, departure time soon came and went, with no sign of movement. We eventually did set off from Graz, just over 15 minutes late. As we depart, we pass a sleeper train that has just arrived in from Berlin and Warsaw. I'm curious to see what these Polish sleeper carriages are like, so I think I might just have to come back to Graz and give this service a go.
Guten Morgen, werte Reisende, und herzlich willkommen.
After departing, it really takes no time at all for the views to become really rather spectacular, and this isn't even the best of it yet.
Den Schock ihres Lebens erleben diese Touristen auf einer Bootstour in den Bahamas. Nicht nur das plötzlich
After running non-stop for the first 3/4 of an hour or so to our first stop in the city of Leoben, we will now be stopping quite a number of times between here and Innsbruck. Honestly, in that regard, it was almost like being on a regional service, as opposed to a long-distance EuroCity train.
Sehr geehrte Reisende, in Kürze erreichen wir unseren nächsten fahrplanmäßigen Aufenthalt, Selztal.
At around 20 past 11, we arrive in Selztal, where we'll be stopped for around 10 minutes while the locomotive runs around, as the train will need to leave the station the same way it came in order to continue towards Innsbruck and Switzerland.
Sehr geehrte Reisende, in wenigen Minuten erreichen wir unseren nächsten Halt. Stationen, planmäßige Abfahrtszeit 13:24 Uhr, Bahnsteig 1. Das Zugteam verabschiedet sich.
At Bischofshofen, I really hope I'm saying that right, we cross paths with a Deutsche Bahn intercity service, which also operate on this part of the route, but of course operating cross-border services to and from Germany, as opposed to Switzerland. At Zell am See, we pass some sleeper coaches that are operated by Optima Express. From the limited information I could find online, it appears that they operate this train between Edirne in Turkey and Villach. Seems a bit of a niche route to me, but still would be an interesting one to try out in the future. Right, time for a wander. Most of the train is made up of these SBB second class coaches. They're all more or less identical to one another, with pretty much all of the seats being arranged in bays of 4. The only difference between some of the coaches being that about half of them feature accessible seating. I'm not gonna lie to you though, these second class coaches look a pretty rough place to spend 8, 9, 10 hours in. They look more like something you'd find on a regional train as opposed to a long distance service. In addition to the massive bicycle section in what is now the rearmost coach, a lot of the coaches also have a couple of spaces for bicycles and skiing equipment in the vestibules. Given where we are, it's hardly surprising that this train is very popular with skiers, especially at this time of year. This is one of the accessible coaches I mentioned a moment ago, though I'm not exactly sure how the wheelchair spaces work. Perhaps the seats fold up when they're needed or something. Anyway, rather conveniently, they are also located right next to an accessible toilet. Speaking of toilets, the one in the Panorama coach was locked out of service for the duration of the trip, so I had to go walk about every time I needed the toilet. I appreciate that that's a bit of a first world problem. Anyway, once I did find one that was vacant, while they certainly look a bit battered, I was pleased to find that everything was clean, well stocked, and in good working order, so I really can't ask for much more than that. I just can't get over how bright and spacious the Panorama Car is. It really does suit this journey well, ensuring that you don't miss any of the wondrous sights that litter the route. It's also good to see that this car is rather popular with people, being pretty full for much of the trip. And then behind us we have this rather nice looking restaurant car. This coach is open to all passengers. However, if you're travelling in first class, you also have the option of having your food served directly to your seat, which I'm about to take advantage of. For my lunch today, I went for the vegetarian hash elbow macaroni with pea protein, washed down with a wheat beer. It was really nice actually, and not too extortionately priced considering that we're on a train. Back outside, things are now looking very wintry indeed, as we close in on Innsbruck.
Ja, ganz genau, ja. Der ist gut, der ist gut. Das war so
Nach Landexamen fährt der Regionalzug um 15:52, Bahnsteig 31 von Ihnen. Wenn Sie hier aussteigen, auf Wiedersehen. Einen schönen Aufenthalt hier in Innsbruck.
At around 20 to 4, we call at Innsbruck Hauptbahnhof. Innsbruck is Austria's 5th largest city, and is the gateway to many of the country's ski resorts. We'll be stopped here for just over 5 minutes while a crew change takes place. And the good news is that we've made up the time that we were delayed in Graz, so my 10-minute connection in Buchs is now looking a-okay. I don't know about you, but I think the water in the river inn here looks so fresh and blue. I bet the tap water around here tastes amazing. Around 2 hours after Innsbruck, we arrive into Feldkirch, which is both our last stop in Austria and the last stop before Buchs. Shortly after leaving Feldkirch, we cross into Liechtenstein. The country is the 6th smallest in the world, and is one of only 2 countries in the world that is doubly landlocked. That being a landlocked country which is surrounded entirely by countries which are themselves landlocked. I was kind of hoping that this was going to be the part where I was able to chuckle at Liechtenstein having a navy, but in fact, the country doesn't have any form of military, and even the police force only employs around 125 people. Perhaps in part at least, thanks to the fact that Liechtenstein has one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Anyway, this has been a very enjoyable journey indeed. The Panorama coach is fantastic, the seats are good, and the dining car is excellent. And not to mention the abundance of spectacular scenery that litters the route between Graz and Switzerland. What more could you want from a long distance train? That said, this journey would have been considerably less fun had I done it in second class, as the seats there look quite a bit less comfortable. I will say though, tickets for this train journey aren't exactly cheap. The lowest prices I could find were €56.90 for second class, and €114 for first class, if you want to travel the full length of the route from Graz to Zurich. However, thankfully I didn't pay this, instead travelling on a first class Interrail pass. Those of you wishing to use one of these to travel on this train, or indeed the Eurail pass should you live outside of Europe, will be pleased to hear that there's no extra charge to travel on this service. You can just simply turn up on the day and go. Although I'd strongly recommend parting with the €3 for a seat reservation. Overall though, a journey I really enjoyed. However, is this a sentiment you share with me? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. At last, we cross the Rhine, which marks the border between Liechtenstein and Switzerland, and pull into Buchs, where I can already see my connecting train to Chur. We arrive on time at 1 minute to 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in Buchs border station. The train changes the driving direction, and this train continues to Zurich main station non-stop until Zurich main station.
With that, I had better head to Chur as I will be taking the world-renowned Bernina Express tomorrow. However, that is very much a story for another day. In the meantime though, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to give it a like, comment and subscribe to the channel, as all of them help me out immensely. Special thanks as always goes to my fantastic patrons and channel members. If you want to join them in supporting the channel from just $1 per month, you'll find the relevant links in the description below. With that, all that's left for me to say is thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all next Friday.
Ninguém